Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. When you marry someone, you never expect to hear them speak words that shake the very foundation of everything you've built together. Yet that's exactly what happened to me. It was an ordinary Wednesday evening. I had just come home from work, still loosening my tie when my wife Emily sat me down on the couch. She looked calm, almost too calm. The kind of calm that usually hides something unpleasant. "I need to talk to you about something important," she said. I remember feeling a knot in my stomach. "All right, what is it?" She folded her hands together and took a deep breath. Then, with the smoothness of someone rehearsed, she said the words that would echo in my mind for weeks. "My therapist thinks I need space. I'm going to take a 2-week break from our marriage, and—" She hesitated slightly, but then continued. "I'll be traveling with another man during that time. It's not what you think. It's supposed to help me clear my head, and when I come back, our marriage will be even stronger than before." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I thought I had misheard her. "A break? With another man?" I repeated slowly, trying to wrap my head around it. She nodded earnestly, like she was asking me to understand a reasonable idea. "Yes, it's not about betrayal. It's about healing. My therapist believes I need to explore certain feelings, and this trip will help me reset emotionally." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd I didn't know how else to respond. "Emily, do you hear yourself? You're telling me you're going on vacation with another man because your therapist told you it would help our marriage?" Her expression hardened. "Don't mock me. I've been unhappy, and you haven't noticed. This is about me finding clarity. If you truly love me, you'll support me." Those words stung. I had always thought we were solid. Sure, we had our disagreements, but who doesn't? I worked hard to provide for us. I tried to be present, and I thought we were building a life together. And now she was presenting this twisted arrangement as if it was some kind of therapeutic exercise. I wanted to argue, to tell her how ridiculous and insulting the whole thing sounded. But I also knew that pushing too hard in that moment would only escalate things. So I said the only thing I could manage, "Do what you want, Emily," and she did. The following weekend, she packed her bags. I watched her wheel her suitcase out the front door, her face filled with excitement like she was heading off to an adventure. She kissed me lightly on the cheek, an almost mocking gesture, and said, "You'll see, this will help us." Then she left. The house was suddenly quiet. Too quiet. The absence of her presence was louder than anything I had ever heard. I sat on the couch for hours that first night, replaying the conversation in my head, wondering how I had become the kind of husband who could be so easily set aside. Days passed. I went through the motions of life, work, sleep, repeat, but everything felt surreal. Friends noticed I was distracted. At work, I made mistakes I normally wouldn't. I didn't tell anyone the truth because how could I? How do you explain that your wife is off finding herself with another man while you sit at home like a fool? But in that silence, I also had time to think. A lot of time. And in that thinking, something inside me shifted. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I wasn't attentive enough. Maybe I hadn't been the husband she needed. But the more I thought, the clearer it became. This wasn't about me. This was about her selfishness, her willingness to dress up betrayal as therapy. That realization didn't heal the pain, but it gave me clarity, and with clarity came resolve. While she was away, I started making changes. Small ones at first. I organized the house, cleaned out the garage, cooked meals for myself instead of waiting for her to return. Slowly, I realized I didn't need her to function. Then came the bigger steps. I spoke with a lawyer. Quietly, without her knowledge, I began the process of understanding my rights, my options, and what separation would look like if it came to that. The lawyer was professional, calm, and didn't judge me when I explained the bizarre situation. "You're not the first person to deal with this," she said, "and unfortunately, you won't be the last." That gave me some comfort. Meanwhile, Emily sent me texts and pictures from her trip. Beaches, dinners, smiling selfies with a man she claimed was just a friend. I didn't reply to most of them. When I did, it was short, polite, detached. Her messages carried an air of normalcy, like nothing was wrong. But to me, everything was wrong. And the more I saw, the more certain I became that when she returned, things would never be the same. The 2 weeks crawled by. I felt like I was living in limbo, suspended between the past and an uncertain future. But I stayed focused. I reminded myself daily, this wasn't my failure, this was hers. Finally, the day of her return arrived. I knew she'd come home expecting to slide back into our life as if nothing had happened. But I was ready. I had prepared myself for whatever storm walked through that door. That evening I heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. My heart pounded, but not with nervousness, with anticipation. The front door opened slowly. Emily stepped inside, her suitcase trailing behind her. She looked tired, but there was a glow about her, like she had returned from some transformative journey. Then she froze, because it wasn't me standing there waiting for her. It was someone else, someone she did not expect to see at all. Her face went pale, then red. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She staggered slightly, and then, to my shock, she fainted right there on the doorstep. I stepped into view, my voice cold but calm. "Surprise," I said. When Emily collapsed on the doorstep, everything seemed to move in slow motion. For a brief second, I debated whether or not to help her. My instincts told me to rush forward, but another part of me, the part that remembered every insult wrapped in the words therapy break, every photo of her smiling next to that man, hesitated. Still, I wasn't cruel. I crouched down, shook her gently, and she blinked awake. Her eyes widened the moment they focused on the figure standing beside me. Why are you here?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The man who stood beside me, her just a friend, the one she had taken her trip with, shifted uncomfortably. Except he wasn't just her friend. He was my cousin, Daniel. I had discovered the truth a week into her trip. Her phone hadn't synced properly, and some of her pictures uploaded automatically to our shared drive. The beaches and dinners, the selfies with the man whose face she had conveniently cropped out of most frames. It hadn't taken long to put the pieces together. When I zoomed in on one reflection caught in a wine glass, my suspicions were confirmed. Daniel. At first, anger consumed me. Betrayal from a spouse is one thing. Betrayal from family is another. But instead of confronting her immediately, I made a decision. If Emily wanted surprises, I would give her one she'd never forget. So I contacted Daniel. I told him I knew everything, and I wanted him to be at the house when Emily returned. To my shock, he agreed. Whether it was guilt, fear, or simply the weight of what they had done, he showed up. Now, as Emily looked from me to him and back again, reality crashed down on her. "You," she began, her voice shaking, "you set this up?" I stood tall, my arms folded. "No, Emily, you set this up. I just let the truth reveal itself." Daniel cleared his throat. "Emily, I'm sorry. I didn't think—" She cut him off, her face a mixture of rage and panic. "You shouldn't be here. Why would you—" She stopped mid-sentence, clutching her stomach. Her cheeks flushed a deep red. It was then that the real surprise surfaced. Emily wasn't just back from a 2-week trip, she was back pregnant. The silence in the room was deafening. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the ticking of the clock on the wall. Her hand trembled as it rested on her belly, as if her body had betrayed her before her lips could. "Is it his?" I asked, my voice low, sharp. She didn't answer. Daniel looked at me with wide eyes, realization dawning. "Wait, Emily, are you—" Her silence was answer enough. I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow even to my own ears. "So this is what making our marriage stronger looks like. Leaving me for 2 weeks, coming back with someone else's child." Emily finally found her voice, though it cracked as she spoke. It's not what you think." I shook my head. "Stop. Don't insult me further. Don't try to twist this into another story about healing or therapy. You made a choice. Both of you did." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck, shame written all over his face. "I didn't want this to happen. We were stupid. We didn't think about the consequences." I turned my glare on him. "You didn't think about the consequences? You destroyed 2 families, Daniel. You betrayed blood." The room was heavy with tension, thick enough to suffocate. Emily's tears began to fall, streaking her face. But I felt nothing. Not pity, not anger anymore, just emptiness. I had spent those 2 weeks preparing myself, slowly accepting that whatever love I once had for Emily had died. Seeing her with Daniel, hearing the truth spill out, only confirmed it. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," I said finally. "Papers are ready. This marriage is over." Emily's face crumpled. No, please. We can fix this. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought—" "You thought what?" I snapped. "That I'd be waiting here with open arms? That I'd raise another man's child and pretend this never happened? You thought wrong." Daniel looked down at his shoes, silent now. I turned away from both of them and walked toward the staircase. "The guest room is set up. You can both stay the night if you want, but tomorrow morning I want you out of this house. Permanently." Emily reached out as if to grab my arm, but I stepped away. "Please, don't do this," she begged. "Think about everything we've been through. Think about our vows." I stopped in my tracks and looked back at her, my voice cold. "Vows? You broke them the moment you left with him. You don't get to hide behind words you already shattered." That night I lay in bed alone, staring at the ceiling. Downstairs I could hear muffled voices, Emily crying, Daniel trying to console her. But I didn't care anymore. My tears had already been shed in the days she was gone. Now there was nothing left but resolve. The next morning, true to my word, they left. Emily begged one last time, clinging to my hand, but I pulled away. Daniel avoided my eyes completely. When the door shut behind them, I felt a strange mix of grief and freedom. I had lost my wife and my cousin in one blow, but in truth, I had already lost them weeks ago. Now, I was free to rebuild. Of course, that was only the beginning. Because the fallout from betrayal doesn't end with a single goodbye. It spreads to families, to friends, to futures once imagined. And mine was only starting to unravel. The weeks after Emily and Daniel left were some of the strangest of my life. The house felt like an empty shell, every corner echoing with memories I didn't want. Sometimes I would walk into the kitchen and almost expect to see Emily humming while she made coffee. Other times, I would look at the front door expecting Daniel to knock, like he used to when we were kids. But neither of them would ever walk through again. At first, I thought I would collapse under the weight of it all. But something unexpected happened. I began to feel lighter. Every day that passed without Emily's half-truths or Daniel's presence was another day of healing. It wasn't easy, but I realized I had a choice: dwell in betrayal or start over. Still, the betrayal didn't stay contained. Word spread through the family. My parents called me first, voices thick with disappointment, but not at Emily or Daniel, at me. "You need to forgive them," my mother said softly. "Family makes mistakes. What matters is staying together." I nearly laughed. "Family makes mistakes? Mom, Daniel isn't a kid who broke a vase. He's a grown man who slept with my wife, and Emily wasn't tricked into it. They both chose this." "Marriage is about forgiveness," my father chimed in. "So is blood. Daniel's your cousin. Emily's your wife. You don't just throw people away when they stumble." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Stumble? A stumble is forgetting an anniversary or missing dinner. This is betrayal. This is cruelty. But no matter what I said, they wouldn't listen. They wanted me to invite Emily back, to give Daniel another chance at being my brother. That was the day I made my decision. I told them firmly, "If you want them, you can have them, but you lose me." And I hung up. The silence after that call was deafening, but it was also the first true boundary I had ever set. Not long after, I packed my things. I sold the house, the one Emily and I had decorated together, the one Daniel had visited countless times, and I moved across the state. New job, new apartment, new number. I didn't even tell most family members where I was going. Starting over was hard but necessary. I poured myself into work, not 70-hour weeks out of desperation like before, but steady hours with purpose. I took care of myself. I joined a gym. I made new friends who knew me not as the man whose wife left him, but as someone who had his own worth. For a while, the past seemed like a distant nightmare. Then, months later, there was a knock at my new door. I opened it to find Emily standing there, her belly swollen with pregnancy. Behind her, Daniel lingered, looking more worn down than I'd ever seen him. Emily's eyes filled with tears the moment she saw me. "Please," she whispered. "I need you. I made a mistake. I thought I could be happy with him, but—" Her voice cracked. "He doesn't love me. He doesn't even want this child. I don't know what to do." Daniel shifted uncomfortably, guilt painted all over his face. "I'm not cut out for this," he admitted, almost shamefully. "I don't know how it happened, but—" I stopped him with a raised hand. Don't you dare try to explain. I've heard enough excuses to last a lifetime." Emily reached for me, desperation in her voice. "We can fix this. You're the only one who's ever loved me like this. Please. I don't want to do this alone." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see the woman I fell in love with. I saw a stranger, one who had made her choices, and now wanted me to carry the weight of them. My heart didn't ache anymore. It felt calm, steady. "You're not alone," I said finally. "You have him, and if he chooses to walk away, that's between you and him. But I'm done being your safety net. You burned that bridge the moment you left." Emily's face fell, her tears spilling freely. Daniel looked down at the ground, too ashamed to meet my eyes. "Surprise," I added coldly, echoing the word I'd spoken months ago when she fainted at the doorstep. "I'm not the man who'll rescue you anymore." Then I closed the door. On the other side, I could hear muffled voices, her pleading, his frustration, but I didn't listen. Instead, I leaned against the doorframe, a quiet sense of peace washing over me. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. The truth is, revenge hadn't come from shouting or fighting. It hadn't come from breaking things or screaming at the people who hurt me. It had come from walking away, from refusing to carry their sins on my shoulders, from building a life where their betrayal didn't define me. Months later, I heard through a distant relative that Emily gave birth. Daniel was still around, but barely. Their lives were filled with chaos, mistrust, and regret. Meanwhile, mine was simple, steady, and, most importantly, my own. Sometimes when I sit on my balcony watching the sunset, I think back to everything. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the moment she returned and begged for my forgiveness. And I realize something. The sweetest revenge isn't payback. It's moving on, stronger and wiser, while those who betrayed you live with the mess they made. And that's exactly what I did.